Welcome to Sideline Guideline.
Hot topics,
News,
fantasy football,
betting,
weekly recaps,
projections,
rankings,
injuries.
your one-stop shop for everything football.
Welcome to Sideline Guideline, Week 4. We're looking at waivers today. I'm joined with ya boy, Matthew Drake. How you doing today, Matthew Drake?
Doing terrific. I'm 9-0 in fantasy right now, 3-0 in 3 different leagues. So my advice is, as always, the best advice.
Yeah, you guys should definitely take up on his advice and not mine. As I don't know if I add the dynasty, I am 2-8, whatever it is. I'm 1-2 in 3 leagues and 0-3 in 1 league. Yeah.
That's a serious ouchie.
Yeah, man. The 0-3 is a very ouchie. But enough whining, enough bitching by myself. We're going to go directly into our waiver episode. So we're going to go right away with the quarterback, the people that throw the ball down the field. The first one we have, man, this is a no-brainer, man. The dude, I think, didn't even throw for a touchdown last week, and he still had over 20 freaking points in fantasy football. We're talking about Jets fans' favorite quarterback, Adam Gase, Kryptonite. We're talking Sam Darnold for the Carolina Panthers. As I just mentioned, man, dude ran for 2 touchdowns last week. And now CMC looks like he's going to be missing some time. What else is there to add about why you should pick up Sam Darnold?
Not much. I mean, they're letting him run the ball in the red zone too. I mean, the fact that they're letting him run the ball in the red zone right there should be enough that you go, all right, as a quarterback, if you need a quarterback and you're not looking at Sam Darnold, you're making a mistake because he's got legit fantasy value, especially while CMC is out. Even while CMC is in, he's got value because those red zone targets, they're generally to CMC, they're throws, right? He gets a lot of passing targets, not necessarily running. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if you need a quarterback, you should absolutely be looking at Sam Darnold, and that one's pretty much a no-brainer.
It's definitely a no-brainer. And our second and only other quarterback that we have in our list today is, I think, according to myself, I would say, is also a no freaking brainer. It's Tyler Heineke. Tyler Heineke, man, he's a beast. He's a beast. He runs for a touchdown also. And it looks like Washington football team will not be able to stop any other offense, opposing offense. So that offense is going to have to score a lot of points. I mean, I think in his 2 starts, he's over 20 points in fantasy. In a half PPR or whatever, it doesn't really matter because he's a quarterback. He's not receiving the ball. But, yeah, man, for me, it's a no-brainer. Do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, you're correct. He is over 20 points on his first 2 starts at quarterback and 22 points against a little bit over 22 points, actually, against a Buffalo defense that's pretty damn good. And who do they got next week? Atlanta giving up the 4th most fantasy points to quarterbacks this season. So that's a green light, baby. Again, if you need a quarterback, you should be looking at Heineke. He runs the ball, and he's got a favorable matchup coming up. And really, their schedule in general moving forward is actually pretty favorable. Like, they do have New Orleans, who have been pretty rough on quarterbacks so far this season. But then they got KC, who's 2nd, and Green Bay 5th. So, I mean, out of your next 4 games, you've got 3 really favorable or relatively favorable matchups, and ones where they figured to probably also, like you said, be down and score. I don't see them I don't see them beating KC at all. I see KC putting the hammer down on them on offense, and then they're going to have to try to come back. So that's going to be a lot of throwing. It's going to be a lot of running. It's going to be a fun time if you got Taylor Heineke on your fantasy team.
For sure. I hope there's literally no one from our Dynasty League listening to this right now because I freaking need Tyler Heineke for now and for the future. My Justin Field experience doesn't look like it's going to pay off. Boy got like 64 yards on offense, but that's on a whole other topic. So that was it for our quarterback. So we're going to go into the receiver. So the first one, I think has been on our list of waiver wire every single freaking week that we've done this. So I guess it's an indicator that no one listens to us, or not enough people listens to us, because he's still wildly under 50% ownership. I think he's like at 30 something or like below 40s. And then you have KJ Hamler that just fell. I mean, and we were talking about this also with some guys from our dynasty league that, Hamler had already, Tim Patrick was already getting his share of the pie. But what happens if you're splitting a pie with somebody and then that somebody disappears? Well, you get more of that pie. It's just facts.
Yeah, and when Bridgewater's the one distributing the pie, and he's looking pretty decent this year. I mean, it's worth a shot. Like you said, Hamler being out is going to give him a lot of targets. I would, not going to lie, I don't want to say where I'm putting in fantasy claims, but I might have a claim in on Tim Patrick. Might have 2 claims in on Tim Patrick, honestly.
Oh, do you? All right. Well, that means go grab him, and if you're in a league with your boy, be careful, because if he has a better waiver priority than you, then you might be into some trouble. All right, so we're gonna go directly into our second receiver. Dude was a sleeper for so many years that people were saying he was about to pop off. He was about to pop off this and that, this and that. I mean, just let alone the next stat. All right, I'm gonna read you his stat line right now. He has 16 reception for 204 yards and a touchdown this season. This is Hunter Renfro. Hunter Renfro seems to be like the favorite option of Derek Carr. Derek Carr seems to have found some talent somehow recently. I don't know where he found it. Maybe he got it at the value store or something like that. But Derek Carr seems to be like he's going to be passing a lot of the ball, and Hunter Renfro is your is the top target. Anything to add to that, man? Would you jump on him, or you prefer what's his other name, Edwards, the other option?
I did pick up in one of my leagues Ruggs. I picked up Henry Ruggs because I thought he's going to be the guy, but you know what, he's starting to heat up, and that's going to take some attention, right? And when he gets attention, that's when he tends to falter a little bit. So I'm a little bit concerned about my own pickup, but that makes Hunter Renfro a valuable fantasy option, because if Ruggs is able to take away some of the coverage, if he's able to draw more, like a couple of double teams here and there, this is going to open things up for Hunter Renfro. I mean, this is a guy who was like he won the award for the #1 walk-on in college football when he was there. Gets underestimated a lot, so he's not going to draw as much coverage as some of the other guys they've got. And obviously they got Darren Waller as well that's going to be drawing coverage. So yeah, I'd jump on Hunter Renfro if he's available in your league and you need a wide receiver. Great option for you, especially in half PPR sure, at your flex.
And the volume is great, man. He's had 22 targets in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That's the kind of volume you're looking at because let's be honest, you're not picking up in the waiver receiver 1. You're looking at if you're in a 2 receiver league, you got injury, you're maybe looking at receiver 3, but mostly waiver pickups are for people that play in 3 receiver leagues, and you're looking at a receiver 3, and that's all you can ask for a receiver 3, is that those targets and those opportunity to make plays and maybe get in the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now we're going to go into our third receiver, someone I've been high on ever since before the season started. My boy, Terrace Marshall. Do you want to say something first on him, and then I'll say what I have to say?
I personally, I'm staying clear of Terrace Marshall. I'm not trusting him. I like Darnold a lot. I like Darnold a lot. I like Darnold a lot in Carolina. I'm staying away from him because the issue there is I think CMC is going to be back sooner than later, and that's going to take away a lot of the targets, right? I also think that they're going to get Robbie Anderson more involved. Their coach had been mentioning that they want to get Robbie Anderson more involved in the offense. So I think that's if that happens, it's going to take away targets. So personally, I'm staying away from him. But if you have a spot on your bench, why not? Why not?
Yeah, I mean, so if we compare Robbie Anderson to to Terrace Marshall. Now I hate it because I lost the drawback percentage rates. But we can look just at the targets. So Robbie Anderson in 3 games has 11 targets, and Terrace has 14. Terrace caught 10 of those 14 targets. Robbie caught 5. All right, so Robbie is not doing too well.
No.
Terrace Marshall was on the field, I think, more last week than Robbie was. He was on 73. Terrace Marshall was on 73% of the offensive snaps, which was an increase from like 50% in week 1 or 2. So man, he's trending positively. So that's why I would personally, I don't think I'm starting him with confidence as a receiver 3. I want to stash him on my bench so that whenever he's popping up and he becomes maybe that option number 2, maybe they get away from Robbie Anderson, maybe they trade him. You don't know what's going to happen there, but I would definitely keep an eye on Terrace Marshall. All right, so the fourth one is not a sexy option. All right, the fourth one is if you're slim picking, you got a spot on the bench to hide him, and it's also due to the injuries in New York. It is Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney, man. For me, is just because I love him from college. He was kind of like playing under the shadow of Kyle Pitts, but he's the kind of guy that can do it all. He can catch short passes. He can block. He can come out of the backfield. I like Toney, and now there's Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton that are down and that might miss some time. So, the targets have to go anywhere. So what do you think? Do you stash him on your bench or do you not touch him?
I don't know. I'm leery of anybody on the New York Giants because I don't like Daniel Jones at all. But I think you got a point there. If you've got space on your bench and you're in a deep league where people are going after those wide receivers, let's say it's a PPR or a half PPR, it's not a bad idea to take and put them on your bench, and then maybe you throw them in there as your flex or something when they have a good matchup. If you have somebody that's just wasting space on your bench, why not? Because like you said,
exactly.
If Slayton's out for any extended period of time, there's going to be targets to be had. And like you said, he did fly under the radar a little bit in college with Kyle Pitts. So I don't know. Again, if you've got space on your bench, but if you have to drop somebody who you think is really going to be on the come up, who's maybe a little bit down right now, and then you figure they're going to be, having a comeback at some point, then maybe don't. But if you got to waste the space on your bench and you're looking at a deep league where slim pickings, go for it. Put them on your bench.
So let's say you're a guy like me that even if you drafted Dak Prescott, you put Justin Fields on your bench. Now is about time that you drop Justin Fields for a guy like Toney, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, because I think Justin Fields, they need to put him back in the oven, let him cook a little bit more before he's going to be ready. Might be a good idea.
Yeah. So I'm going to think about that. And while I think about that, let's go into our running back. The first one is kind of the obvious, and it would be the one to put your waiver claim on if you're running back needy for the next 3 to 4 weeks. And it is also a good option if CMC is going to be getting injured a lot this season, but it's Chuba Hubbard, the Canadian boy that rushed crazy amount of yards in college. He ran for over 2,000 yards in college in a season, I'm pretty sure, in one season. Let me just confirm that. Chuba Hubbard college stats. But yeah, do you have anything to say about Chuba Hubbard while I Google his stats? Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
I'm
going to cut you off right. I found it right away, man. Dude, in 13 games in 2019, when he played a full season, had 2,094 yards, averaging 6.4 yards per carry, and had 21 touchdowns. He's a machine.
Yeah, and this is the most obvious one. Smash that button if he's available in your league still. Then I question how good your league is, because people should have been picking him up. The second that CMC went down and was even touching his knee or touching his leg or whatever, you should have been putting in a waiver claim on him. It's an obvious one. Should be fun. His value obviously drops big time if and when CMC is back. But, he's another guy that if you have a pretty good lineup, you can stash him on your bench. And then if CMC goes down later in the year, or, there's also COVID protocols. There's a lot of different reasons why guys might miss games. He's somebody you can spell off and throw in there if anything else happens with CMC. So, yeah, this is a pretty obvious one. If you're in a regular waiver draft, like with a waiver order and it's not FAAB, you better pray that you got the first overall priority, because otherwise you're probably not going to get him. But if you do, smash it, take him.
You probably pray that you're not a dum-dum like me that actually drafted him in a bunch of my league as my last pick of the draft for a handcuff, and then have already dropped him. So now I'm stuck putting a waiver claim on him when I drafted him, and it's freaking week 4. But that's another misery of my fantasy year. All right, so we're going to go into our second one. Marlon Mack. The reason why I put Marlon Mack there is because as of today, there are talks that the reason why he was held out of the game last week is because they're looking at potential trade partners for Marlon Mack. So Marlon Mack, a very, very talented running back. I wouldn't say he's a CMC, but he's very good and he can do a bunch of different things. He might go into a running back needy team. And who knows, man, maybe he might go to a team like the Jaguars that just Urban Meyers freaking hates James Robinson. Maybe he doesn't hate him that much after this week's performance. But that being said, he's probably going to go somewhere that are running back needy. And I'm definitely sure he's going to be moved. He has 1 year left on his contract. So I'm pretty sure Carolina would say yes to like a 7th round pick. So anything to add on Marlon Mack?
Yeah, I'd say pretty much I agree with everything you said there. Again, if you got spot on your bench, stash him, right? If he gets traded and he gets traded somewhere with a decent O-line that likes to run the ball, that needs a running back, he could be a great play. Play. He was a great play last year for quite a few games. So
that's one of the position too that you can have be relevant in fantasy wise quite early after a trade, because if they don't bring him on passing play, they bring him on first down and stuff. Like he just and on goal line might get a couple yards. All he needs to do is be like, all right, you run through the A gap, the C gap, the B gap, and then that's it. That's on, and he doesn't need to know everything. So go pick him up if you have that spot on your bench. Our last running back is really not sexy, but I mean, he's someone that I liked. I liked him a lot in Denver. I was one of the guys that in past years put draft picks on him thinking he was going to be a sleeper that year, but he never came to. We're talking about Royce Freeman from the Carolina Panthers. Go ahead and explain to us why.
Well, this is a Hail Mary, right? So this is another one where absolutely don't do it unless you've got somebody wasting space on your bench, right? But again, like you said, he's a talented running back. He can run the ball. And if something happens to Chuba Hubbard, or if CMC is out for an extended period of time, he might get more involved in that offense, right? They started getting him involved a little bit last week, not very much, but he got a little taste. He's getting out-snapped heavily by Hubbard for good reasons. But listen, anything can happen, right?
Exactly.
A lot of CMC owners are regretting that they didn't already have Chuba Hubbard on their bench. So, don't have that regret yourself. Again, if you got some wasted space on your bench, take the Hail Mary, right? Sometimes a Hail Mary pans out. I did it years back with Michael Vick. I took a Hail Mary, put Michael Vick on my bench, and then guess what? Kevin Cobb got hurt. I had Michael Vick as the starting quarterback for the rest of the season, murdering it. Same situation that you might have here. Maybe not like the same situation as I had with Michael Vick, but this is a guy, again, if you got space on your bench, you stash him, something happens, bam.
Boom. Booyah. All right, so we're going to go into the tight ends. And the first one is making me happy. The first one is making me happy because he's my boy. Just had an amazing freaking game to smash the goddamn Eagles. Where them flying Eagles now? What are they doing? They're flying or they dead? We're talking about Dalton Schultzy. Dalton Schultzy Just going to give you a quick stat line right there for you folks that like stat. He's caught 14 out of 15 targets for 2 touchdowns in 3 games. I drafted various tight ends in various leagues that have not came close to producing that much after 3 weeks. Even George Kittle. George Kittle is barely producing at that level right now. Not saying that Schultz is a better fantasy option than Kittle. I'm just saying that Schultz is a very, very good fantasy tight end option that's still out there in almost all the leagues. I think he's like owned at like 15, 20%. So jump on that boy.
Yeah, this one should be obvious, right? It seems like Dak Prescott likes him. That one touchdown he scored where I think he caught the ball about 12 yards out of the end zone. And there was, I want to say there were 8 Eagles closer to him than anybody blocking for him. CeeDee Lamb was nearby and kind of got a little bit of a chip block in on somebody just to keep him away. But other than that, he got into the end zone on his own. It was yards after the catch. So if he can do that, Dak Prescott's going to keep trusting him, going to keep throwing him those balls, especially in the red zone. He could be the new Jason Witten for the Cowboys, right? He kind of looked like him a little bit on some of those plays. And, he's currently ranked in fantasy in half PPR as the number 5 tight end. Number 5 ranked through 3 weeks. So if you have a tight end problem, go pick him up. Absolutely. If you don't have, basically, I would name like 5 or 6 tight ends that if you don't have one of those guys, you should be going after him. And it's TJ Hawkinson, George Kittle, Travis Kelce, maybe
Waller.
Kyle Pitts, Darren Waller for sure. Yeah. Maybe Kyle Pitts just for potential. But even if you have Kyle Pitts, go get Dalton Schultz and Noah Fant. I guess you throw in there as well.
If you have go ahead.
Yeah, outside of any of those elite tight ends, if you don't have one of those guys already, go get Dalton Schultz now.
Guaranteed, man. I totally agree. And same thing can be said about our next one. He falls under the same category that he has a sexy stat line. All right. So that's Tyler Conklin. Tyler Conklin from Minnesota has caught 13 out of 16 targets for 1 touchdown. And he's like at over 120 or something yards. Yeah, he's getting a lot of yards and he's getting in the groove. And it seemed like the Vikings have traded for Chris Herndon for no reason because Chris Herndon seems to be the same disappointment he was in New York every year that we thought he was going to be a sleeper breakout candidate. And I was one of those. And I think now it's safe to say that Chris Herndon will never be a breakout candidate in fantasy. And Ty Conklin is the only viable tight end options that they have after Irv Smith went down.
Yep. This is another one that should be pretty obvious. I mean, Kirk Cousins seems like he's heating up. He's not throwing picks. I got to say, as much as I don't like Kirk Cousins because he's burned me in fantasy before, he's having a pretty good year. He's not throwing picks. And like Conklin had 8 targets and 7 catches last week against Seattle. And Seattle's a pretty good defense. So if he's doing that against Seattle, it's going to keep going. And their receiving core is so good that a lot of those underneath tight end routes are wide open. So what does that mean? Especially if you're in a PPR or a half PPR, it means a lot of receptions. Yep. He's not touchdown dependent. He's going to give you good weeks regardless of whether or not he scores touchdowns because those underneath routes are going to be so open. You got Thielen, you got Jefferson stretching the field a little bit, occupying the defense, run him underneath, and then you can throw it to him. Kirk Cousins loves that. He's going to eat that up. He's going to keep throwing it. So, yeah, Tyler Conklin, excellent pickup.
Yeah, man. And like, he's not a small boy. Like, he's 6'4", 250 pounds. That's a big boy. All right. So we're going to go into our last player of this waiver episode. We've talked about him before. It is Jared Cook. Go ahead and take it.
Yeah, look, Jared Cook, he's not I'd put him as number 3 behind those other 2, right? If I can get one of those other 2, I'm taking them before I take Jared Cook. That's for sure. Hands down, no problem. But again, if you have a tight end problem, you might want to look at Jared Cook. He's had pretty decent stats through the course of these 3 weeks, and that's with his quarterback, Justin Herbert, struggling. Justin Herbert is probably one of the guys who's considered as like the future of the position, right? I
Mhm.
don't think he's going to keep struggling. I think he's going to turn it around, and I think Jared Cook's going to be a part of that. They're another team similar to what we said about Tyler Conklin. They got a good receiving core, right? Mike
Mhm.
Williams, Keenan Allen, those same guys. If they can work it in, they can get some of those underneath routes to him. You know, his targets are going to get up. I think his red zone targets are going to go up as well.
For
I think
sure.
there's going to come a point where he's going to start scoring more points. And even as it stands, even with his quarterback struggling, if I'm not mistaken, he's ranked around 12th among tight ends right now in half PPR. So if you're in a 12-team league, you know, you have a tight end one,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And I think he's going to get better. So
Yeah, man, I fully agree on that with you. And plus, you were mentioning those red zone targets. I mean, Mike Williams is having hell of a year, but as good as he is, as history has shown, not this. It's not going to be the same receiver catching the touchdown every single freaking time they get in the end zone. Like that's just the science of it, and that's just the statistic of it. Um, Different targets get different touchdown. Now, up to 3 weeks in the season, most of the touchdown have gone to Mike Williams. That's going to keep happening. Mike Williams, don't get me wrong, Mike Williams is going to keep eating in that offense. But at some point, Jared Cook is going to get some of those red zone targets, and he's going to capitalize on those.
yeah, it's almost like Herbert is too reliant on Mike Williams right now,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they're going to coach that out of him. I think he's going to
For
get away
sure.
from that. They're going to spread the love, and Jared Cook's a guy who could end up getting some of that love, and then you get to spread some love on your fantasy team.
Exactly. All right. So you heard it here. Waivers for week 4. We're gonna have some more content coming to you out this week. Probably gonna be a episode coming Sunday morning live to you. That's gonna be kind of a preview of what's going to happen for Sunday, getting you ready for that football day of football. But if not, man, hope you enjoy our waiver episode. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Sideline Guide. And if not, man, Drake, always a freaking pleasure, bud.
Always.
All right. Take care, y'all, and see you next time.